What's that sound, the one that makes people wince, the one you've been told is your joints wearing themselves down, one crack at a time? Welcome back to Medical Insight, where we take the numbers, tests, and terms your doctor rarely has time to fully explain and break them down in plain English. We've already uncovered the blood pressure number most people overlook, the blood sugar number that can warn you years before diabetes ever gets diagnosed, and the real story behind your cholesterol panel and your metabolic age. Today, we're doing something a little different. Instead of a hidden number, we're going after 3 sounds your joints make that almost everyone has been warned about at some point, usually by a parent, a teacher, or a well-meaning stranger who heard it from someone else entirely. None of them ever actually explained why. So today we're finally explaining why, starting with the most famous joint sound of them all, the one you've probably made at least once today without even thinking about it. You've heard it 100 times. Cracking your knuckles is bad for you. It wears down the joint. It grinds the bone. Keep doing it long enough, and one day you'll wake up with arthritis in every finger, and it'll be entirely your own fault for not listening. Here's the problem with that explanation. It's not what's actually happening, and once you understand the real mechanism, you'll realize the sound was never anything to fear in the first place. Each of your joints sits inside a capsule filled with a thick, lubricating fluid called synovial fluid. That fluid contains dissolved gas, mostly carbon dioxide. When you bend or stretch a joint in a particular way, you momentarily pull the 2 bones slightly farther apart. The space inside the capsule increases, but the amount of fluid inside stays exactly the same, which suddenly drops the pressure inside that space. That pressure drop yanks the dissolved gas out of the fluid so quickly that it forms a bubble almost instantly. And the formation of that bubble, sometimes its collapse a moment later, is what produces the sound you hear. It's the same basic physics as twisting the cap off a soda bottle and hearing that quick hiss as pressure releases and gas escapes the liquid. Nothing is grinding. Nothing is cracking apart. No bone is touching another bone. It's gas, pressure, and fluid, doing exactly what gas, pressure, and fluid do under those conditions. This is exactly the sound everyone's been told is dangerous for entirely the wrong reason. The warning got passed down for generations, parent to child, without anyone ever checking whether it was actually true, because the sound itself is loud and sudden enough that blaming it on damage just felt intuitive. It's an easy story to believe. It just happens to be the wrong one. One man decided he was done simply believing it. His name was Donald Unger, and as a kid, his mother warned him constantly that cracking his knuckles would give him arthritis, the exact same warning countless parents have given countless kids for decades. Most people just stop cracking their knuckles, or keep doing it quietly and never think about the warning again. Unger did neither. He decided he was going to find out for real, no matter how long it took. So for the next 50 years, he cracked the knuckles on his left hand consistently, deliberately, while leaving his right hand completely untouched, specifically so he'd have a built-in comparison sitting at the end of each of his own arms. 50 years, roughly 36,500 cracks on one side and 0 on the other. At the end of it, he had both hands examined. No arthritis in the cracked hand, no arthritis in the uncracked one either. Both hands, after half a century, told the exact same story. For his uncommonly patient act of self-experimentation, Unger was awarded an Ig Nobel Prize, the tongue-in-cheek honor reserved for research that makes people laugh first and then genuinely think. In his own write-up, he suggested this same skeptical approach might be worth applying to a few other things parents have insisted on for generations, spinach included. And whether that one holds up is apparently still an open question. So here's the honest, quotable version of 50 years of evidence. The only proven danger of cracking your knuckles is mildly annoying the people sitting next to you. And if you're being honest with yourself right now, there's a decent chance your fingers are already twitching, itching to crack something, purely because we've spent the last few minutes talking about it. Go ahead. Now you know exactly what that sound actually is. Your knee pops during a squat, and instantly your brain jumps to the worst-case story. That grinding, popping sound must mean cartilage wearing down, something breaking apart with every step, arthritis quietly building with each rep. Here's the thing, though. That sound has a real name, Crepitus. And in most cases, it has nothing to do with damage at all. Crepitus can come from several different sources inside the knee, and none of them require anything being worn away. Sometimes it's simply the natural texture of your cartilage surfaces meeting slightly differently than expected. Sometimes it's a tendon or ligament briefly catching and releasing as it slides across a bony ridge. And sometimes, just like a knuckle, it's a small gas bubble collapsing inside the joint fluid. The knee is especially prone to this because so many tendons and ligaments cross tightly, packed bony surfaces in a relatively small space. So even normal movement during a squat or a stair climb can produce a loud, startling pop with zero relationship to arthritis. Here's where the real distinction lives, and it's not in the sound itself. Picture two people, both in their 30s, both noticing their knee pop loudly during the exact same squat. One of them feels nothing else afterward. No ache, no stiffness, full range of motion. The knee simply made noise and moved on with its day. The other feels a dull soreness lingering for an hour and wakes up the next morning with a knee that feels tight. Two identical sounds, two completely different situations. Research looking at knee crepitus has consistently found that this kind of popping is extremely common even in people with fully healthy knees and no structural damage on imaging at all, which means the sound alone tells you far less than most people assume. What actually matters is whether that sound shows up alongside pain, swelling, or a real loss of motion, not whether your knee happens to be a little noisy. So here's the honest version, stripped down to one line. Your knee popping isn't the problem. Your knee hurting is the problem. And those two things are not automatically the same thing. Next time your knee pops on a stair or mid-squat, take an honest second and check. Is there any actual pain riding along with that sound, or was it just noise? Winter comes around and every joint that's ever bothered you suddenly seems to know it. The assumption feels obvious. The cold must be doing something to your joints, wearing them down a little more, each time the temperature drops, like the season itself is slowly aging your body. Here's what's actually happening instead, and it's a very different story than ongoing damage. Changes in barometric pressure, the kind that show up before storms or with any real weather shift, alter the pressure inside your joint capsules, especially in joints that already carry some inflammation. That shift can heighten sensitivity in the nerves surrounding the joint, which is exactly why people with existing joint conditions genuinely feel more discomfort around certain weather changes. Cold temperatures add a second factor on top of that. They cause synovial fluid to thicken slightly, which makes the joint feel stiffer than usual. And cold weather also naturally reduces blood flow to your extremities as your body prioritizes keeping its core warm, meaning your hands, knees, and feet simply get less circulation, which adds to that dull, persistent ache. None of these three things involve your cartilage or your joint tissue actually breaking down. This distinction matters more than it might seem. Picture the fear on one side that every cold morning is quietly, permanently damaging your joints a little further, stacking up injury year after year with no way to undo it. Now picture the reality on the other side, temporary sensitivity from pressure and fluid changes that fully resolves once things warm up or once you start moving, with nothing being lost in the meantime. One of those is a slow, escalating crisis. The other is simply a manageable, reversible discomfort. Only one of them is actually true. This is also exactly why gentle movement genuinely helps on a cold morning, and it's not just an old saying with nothing behind it. Moving the joint helps redistribute that thickened fluid and gently warms the surrounding tissue, which is the real reason walking it off works as well as it does. So here's the honest version in one line. Cold weather makes your joints louder, not older. So there they are, 3 sounds that have probably worried you at some point for no real reason. Cracking your knuckles is just gas and pressure, doing exactly what gas and pressure do. And after 50 years of one man's own hands proving it, the only real danger is annoying whoever's sitting next to you. A popping or grinding knee on its own isn't the problem. It's whether pain shows up alongside it that actually matters. And cold weather doesn't age your joints, it just makes them louder for a while through pressure and fluid changes that fully reverse once you warm up and start moving. 3 sounds, 3 warnings you've probably heard your whole life, none of them telling the story you were led to believe. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Out of these 3, which one did you always believe was true, knuckles, knees, or the weather? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and it genuinely shapes which myths we tackle next. If this finally cleared up something you've heard repeated for years without ever knowing whether it held up, that's exactly what this channel exists to do. We've covered blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, and metabolic age, and now 3 of the most common joint myths out there. If you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and I'll see you in the next video.